Awesome. Welcome, DRCOG Technical Committee. Happy July. Excited to see you all in the Brady Bunch style. Thank you for being here. We've got a great agenda today, and I will toss it back to Cam to do a call of order, and then we'll review notes from last time.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I will just start saying who is attending the committee. So I currently see Amanda Perkins, Gabrielle Rink, Jeff Long, Jonathan Cohn, Lucas Hagan, Martin Postma, Maurice Healy, Sergio Cordova, Susie Strife, Brooke Pike, Bridger Tomlin, and those are all the members and alternates I see at this time, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Adam Sanderson as well.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Cam. We're going to move to any public comment from last session's notes or actually just any public comment before we move to that. Does anyone want to share anything publicly at this time? Okay. Cam, do you see any hands or?
No, I don't see any hands raised at this time, Madam Chair. And also just a nice reminder, if I am requesting that you be promoted to a panelist, if you're a member and alternate, please accept that request. Thank you.
Thanks, Cam. Okay, we're going to move on to any comments or discussion from the June 3rd, 2025 Regional Building Decarbonization Technical Committee. That's attachment A. That's a summary of your last meeting. Any comments or discussion needed for that? Okay, moving right along to our first discussion item. The first official agenda item is for Chris Selk to talk about decarbonization DRCOG market research overview. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you, albeit virtually. And it's really exciting to be able to share with all of you a little bit about what's been going on the marketing front for the decarbonization program. To that end, we have a guest speaker this morning, Philippa Cross. She goes by Pip. I think Philippa can be a little hard for some Americans to say, so she's kindly shortened it for all of us to Pip. Pip is the founder of Marshall Sustainability, and in conjunction with the Institute for the Built Environment out of Colorado State, they are working on the market research aspect of the marketing program under the marketing consultant, Karsh Hagen. So market research is a vital part of any brand development for a number of reasons. It offers a lot of insights that can help shape the overall program development, communication strategies, and brand positioning in the market. And this is really your opportunity to not only learn about what PIP is helping lead in terms of market research, but to be able to weigh in and ask any questions that you might have. We really encourage that this morning. So with that, I will hand it off to Pip to share her screen and present on some market research.
Great. Well, thank you, Chris, and hi, everyone. Glad to be with you here today. So we're going to give you an overview of the work that we did so far, some of the key learnings and what we think are the next steps out of this work. And really, as Chris mentioned, we're here to support you on the overall program around reducing greenhouse gas emissions at scale, expanding workforce readiness, and making sure that there's a replicable policy framework. So those are our goals. And this was helpfully shared by the team in terms of what are our key objectives and what do we want to help achieve. So really, our work has been, at the moment, we're in the phase 1, baseline understanding. So what we really seek to achieve out of this market research is find out who our key, what our key insights are to develop the brand, to develop some key personas around audiences that we want to reach, and have some early insights for the first preliminary campaign that we launch, which is around the organization name, the tagline, and like an umbrella campaign, if you like. Then once we've landed on that, in phase 2, we're going to move more into localized understanding. So that's where we'll be looking at more refined campaign messaging and more audience-specific targeting. And then phase 3 ongoing, we'll continue to stay involved in the project and look at pulse testing to see if there's ways for us to improve the overall campaign assessment and make effectiveness and make any continual refinements. So in terms of our research structure, we've really identified 4 key audiences for now, although we know that there's many different audiences that we want to reach as part of this market transformation. But the first one is low-income homeowners. You have a target to help 1,600 homes decarbonize with direct support. So our goal to reach this audience is through a resident advisory group, what we're calling the Communications Advisory. And that will be where we have selected members from different neighborhood groups and community-based organizations that will be an informed audience to help us refine messaging. The second audience are what we're calling pragmatic homeowners. So this is people middle to high income in the Denver metro region area who may be investing in upgrades to their homes. And again, we're doing an online focus group with up to 150 participants. And then for building owners, managers, and contractors and workforces, we're doing a series of qualitative one-to-one virtual interviews. So in this first phase, though, before we reached out to develop the discussion guides for these different audiences, we also spent time doing secondary research. So we looked at the literature that's out there. We reviewed over 100 national, international, and regional program reports and studies. Many of these studies were in peer-reviewed journals. Some of the studies were meta-analysis of different campaigns and primary research and program reports that are out there. We really focused on research around heat pumps, building electrification and energy efficiency, but we also looked at how programs and campaigns have been developed on EVs and also water conservation. And our key goal is really to understand what are the mindsets, the values, and the perceptions that drive adoption for market transformation. How aware are people today, and what motivates them to make changes, and what are the barriers that prevent them from creating change? We also looked at what are the right messaging framings and levers, and we'll get on to talk about that in a bit more detail. We also looked at channels and who are the right messengers to deliver these kinds of messages. So we looked at a range of different sources, and we also used ChatGPT to help us facilitate the synthesis. So that's the literature review. In addition, we did a campaign review. There have been a lot of decarbonization campaigns, both here in the US and globally. So wherever we could find examples of good campaigns, we also looked for any data on the effectiveness of those campaigns. So in terms of audience reach and also adoption of technology. So what we're also really interested to understand, of course, for the marketing is what are the right messages? So what are the different trends that we see in campaign names and taglines? What is the trends around different languages and translation? And what do we see being leveraged in terms of key motivators and barriers? And are there any other key learnings? So that's what we were hoping to gain from this. So what we're going to share with you now is the executive summary. Behind this sits a wealth of information and all of the sources if you're interested to go even deeper. But essentially, this is our key learnings on a page. And really, the key insights that we learn is we need to focus on the benefits first and make it really easy for people to make those choices. We also need to use everyday non-technical terms and simple language. And the key motivators that are out there is cost. Second to that, efficiency, comfort, health, environment, and peer influence. And we'll come on to talk more about this, but it's not climate and it's not environment first. It's what are the benefits to me as a human being that I'm going to experience in my life. So that's something really important for us to bear in mind. Even though our goal is reducing emissions, primarily, we've got to think about what's in it for the consumer. In terms of barriers, well, even though cost is the main motivator, cost is also the main barrier. So there's a perception that it's going to cost more. There's concern over complexity, lack of awareness, inertia, and general kind of concerns about some of the myths that are out there about this technology. You probably know this and are well aware of it, but just that comes through in the different research. In terms of messengers, contractors are definitely a really trusted messenger and an important audience. Utilities, peers, friends and families, local organizations and local government really are valued messengers. And then at a high level, visuals. People don't really know what a heat pump looks like. So some of the studies found that if you can use product images rather than illustrations or lifestyle shots, that really goes a long way to demystifying the category for people. So avoiding that high-tech imagery and focusing on what it really is can be really beneficial. So this first point that we just wanted to land on a little bit more is we really need to anchor it in a personal benefit. So we really need to tap into what is that core benefit for the consumer: cost savings, comfort, health, efficiency. But there's also a lot of watch outs in the literature saying that we want to not misinform people. We don't want to see that people see energy savings and see that that's going to be a cost saving, because what we saw across different markets is that energy savings doesn't necessarily mean substantial cost savings because of the price of electricity in different markets. And we really want to, as we mentioned before, the environmental impact is not unimportant, but it's really a co-benefit. We don't want to lead with that. And what we also saw is there's a real difference. A lot of this research is targeted at pragmatic homeowners, so middle to high income. There's less research out there for low income homeowners. But what we did find, and what we found through some of the work that IBE has done with the city of Boulder, for example, and Denver, is that leading with affordability and minimizing the energy burden is really important. So, and also thinking about safety and health. So with that, cost is definitely the top factor. So here is the results of a study from Minnesota that came out 2024, not 2004. And it said really that even those who identify as eco-conscious, so they say the climate change and taking action on climate change is really important to them, really their top issue is the price and cost of running the system. So, so that is a really important factor to think about. But of course, what we also saw is that across different markets, depending on electricity prices in your region, the heat pump isn't necessarily the cheaper option from an ongoing energy cost point of view. So it can also be more expensive in the upfront equipment costs, and there's definitely uncertainty out there around future electricity costs. So we want to really avoid misleading consumers about a cost benefit when it might not be true in their situation. We also saw that there's a lot of nuance around what kind of home that you're in, how well insulated it is, and other factors that might impact the effectiveness of the unit and the cost of the ongoing utility cost. So I think the question that we really saw coming out of this is we need to tell a cost benefit story, but how do we tell it in a more nuanced way? And how do we do it simply? Because consumers just cannot handle this level of complexity. And on the right here, you see an example from Rewiring America. They're a national nonprofit that's providing information around the decarbonization agenda. And here, what they're doing is they're kind of tackling that barrier of complexity by offering customized plans. So you log on to the consumer-facing section of their website, you enter your specific details around your home. There's a calculator that then estimates what you could save and what would be your priority list of actions to take first. And it might not be a heat pump first. It might be insulation or other factors that you might do in your home. So that's one way to do it. And so I think that's what really coming out of the secondary research. We found that there's a lot of campaigns that talked about the importance of thinking about the customer journey. So what are those key steps in a heat pump adoption? On the one hand, you need to be aware that heat pumps are out there and that there is a benefit, and maybe that people who are like you are experiencing that benefit. So that's that social proof. People like me have them and they're good. The second might be then education. Can you provide more detailed information about the benefits, whether it's comfort, safety, as well as cost? And then finally, adoption. Can you provide services so that you can see how these benefits might fit your personal circumstances. So that might be the journey that someone goes on. And there's probably more that we'll do over the course of the market research phase to further outline what these different steps are and what information and what kind of tips and support do you need at each of those different stages. And this is an example of a campaign called Energy Works. It was developed in Pennsylvania, and they were really generous with sharing their campaign results and their campaign steps. And they really started with this awareness campaign on one side. Really, they linked the idea of heat pumps making your house more comfortable, launching it in the summertime when people are really hot, and thinking about whether AC might be relevant for them. So that's the first phase of the campaign. The second phase was around education. They then brought in not only the comfort message, and again, linked to a seasonal time around the winter when it's cold. They also started to talk about some homes might be able to save up to $750 a year or more with energy efficiency improvements. And then the third phase of their campaign was around adoption. So then they offered home energy assessments to see how you could live more comfortably, save energy, and save money. But throughout that campaign, they've built those different benefits and helped consumers see how they might move along that adoption journey. The other thing that we saw is targeting. So what are some of the studies that were out there talked about that heat pump adoption is really is higher in regions with low electricity prices. So there were some really successful campaigns coming out of places like Massachusetts, Vermont, where electricity is more expensive than gas, or they don't have a local natural gas supply. So there you're seeing a real increase in heat pump adoption. What they also saw in the literature is that adopters of solar are more likely to upgrade to a heat pump. And they think in part that's because your overall electricity cost is lower because you're subsidizing it with home self-generation. So what some studies recommended is the business case seems to work really well in homes that are already using electric resistant heat systems and propane, because there's already a higher cost of electricity, and they've got lots to gain from a heat pump that is 2 to 4 times more energy efficient than previous systems. So there's likely to be cost savings there. So we did a quick model here on the right, which is what would be the opportunity for targeting homes with electric resistance and energy burden in the Front Range area. So we took the different counties here. I think we missed a county in the DRCOG region, but at least this gives you a sense of what are the estimated households here. In the full orange bar is the estimate of homes that might be powered by electric resistance. The deeper color are the lighter color are those homes that also have solar. So those might be homes that are electric and also have solar. And then also what we looked at with the green dots are those homes in the area that are considered energy burden by the Department of Energy based on the proportion of their household income that they spend on energy per month. So that way we feel like this is initial data based on data from the 22 and 2020. So we think there's more modeling to do here to see how many of these homes would be in this target. But this targeting, focusing on homes that could really benefit from the cost savings, we feel could be a really good marketing strategy to get brand transformation with homes that could really benefit from this story. So the other thing we saw is some campaigns really addressed barriers directly. So common barriers around complexity, lack of awareness, resistance, risk aversion. And so on the right here, you see an example from Electrify America. It's called Normal Now. This was really around electric cars. So they showed examples of technology from previous generations and previous decades about how that too seemed weird in the beginning, but now it's something that we take for granted. So just some ideas of unique ways in that can really help drive awareness. What we also saw is some different segments, some insights around different segmentation. So this here is our 4 core audiences. and really the summary of kind of the key message and the key benefits that they might seek from the transformation. So on the low-income homeowners, they really want you to relieve that energy burden. Can you make their homes more comfortable, but also don't saddle them with higher utility costs in the future? On the pragmatic homeowner side, they're looking for, more control over their energy use and upgrading the bills, but they're also interested in that idea of an upgrade and more or the same level of comfort that they have now. On the building side, building owners and building managers, they're looking for tenant retention ultimately. So people want to stay in the building, a good return on investment and a reliability of the technology. And then on the contractor side, they want to be able to offer the right technology and meet customer demand really easily. So having that right knowledge. In terms of some of the benefits that you see, pragmatic homeowners see electrification as modern, efficient, and potentially cost savings. But there's still a lot of skepticism out there about performance and the reliability compared to gas. There's mixed attitudes towards the climate, as we mentioned. Most people are motivated by the practical advantages. So that's where we feel like we should anchor our messaging. And also there's still a lot of perception that going electric is going to be complex and it's going to be disruptive in your home. On the low income side, it's really the idea of electrification seems expensive and out of reach because of upfront costs. There's a real concern about higher bills and the replacement costs if the equipment has a more limited life than gas. And they may see this as a policy for someone else, not for them. So we need to be really careful about the language that we use. This is a national segmentation study that was created by YouGov that does national research. And this is clustering different audiences by their responses to different statements. And we just shared this because Colorado over-indexes on a category that they're calling green when keen. So this is that consumers agree that climate change is a problem, we should do more, but it's not really entrenched in their life stage yet. So they're really pragmatic about the changes that they will make. We saw another segmentation study coming out of some work in Minnesota, and they came up with 4 different segments where the emphasis is on different co-benefits, but the order of those benefits change based on the different type of consumer. So what we saw in the Minnesota work, there was also another work in the Netherlands that was really similar, is that lifetime value seekers. So these are the people that are concerned about time and money, that they want to upgrade to systems that are easy to install and maintain and will last a long time. That is the biggest value segment, and that is the segment that is most attractive to target for heat transformation. So it's just something to bear in mind, because I think when you enter into this category, you might think that the eco-conscious innovator is the one that is most likely. But what we're seeing is really it's the practicality and the pragmatism that wins out. Just some other thoughts, we are looking at these different target audiences. On the builder, owner, and manager sides, there were more kind of industry research literature that we look through. And really what really motivates a building owner is positive examples from the local market. So examples of buildings in our region that have shown good changes. The rebate messages need to be clear and timely, and they need to come in the design phase so they can be built into the development of the project. There's a real need for reliability, reassurance around heat pumps in cold weather. And then there's also that training for the O&M personnel. And again, the biggest retrofit opportunity was highlighted as buildings using electric or propane. So just on the right side here is just a great report that came out of the Urban Land Institute, and they did a great piece of work called Pumping Up Sustainability, and they focused a lot on myth busting and 9 different myth bustings. But here's just one example of cold climates where they're really seeing an increase in heat pumps. So Maine is at the top there, a US state, but also Maine is one of those areas where the electricity costs are lower than natural gas. So just on contractors, we also need to show those stories of customer demand and case studies of contractors finding new market opportunities in the energy efficiency sector. We also did an interview yesterday with the BDC, and we heard that really strong and clear that that's what contractors are looking for. They want to grow their business. They want it to be attractive new market segments. They want the opportunity for good pay and that economic opportunity. But they are really interested in these stories of increased production, the fact that heat pumps are outselling natural gas furnaces now. Those are all good messages to talk with contractors about. On the workforce side, they're looking for authentic voices again of current workers who prove that it's a well-paid, stable opportunity. We need to make opportunities for growth clear, and we want to see examples of diversity because there's a lot of opportunity in different segments of the population for different workers to support different parts of the community. So we need to be able to show to them that it's easy to get trained and that we can leverage peer networks to get the message out there about workforce opportunities. We mentioned this before with the Energy Works that did a great example of this is timing our campaign can be really important around either key moments and decision points. So we know that equipment failure and end of life is a really big moment when people choose to upgrade to new systems. So we want to make sure that we provide them with the information, as soon as possible or around those kind of moments. Any kind of moving or home renovations is a great time to hear this messaging and to see this. And any kind of lifestyle changes, some of the advertising that we'll see focuses on retirement because you're going to end up spending more time in your home. You want to make it comfortable. Also, parents are going to be spending more time at home. You want to create urgency, so a limited time to take advantage of offers. You want to ensure relevance. So we see here with this campaign, it's really linked to the seasons, making you more comfortable in the summertime and in the wintertime. We also want to coordinate the timing with installer capacity. So I know you're working on the contractor hub. It would be great if there are ways for us to combine the growth of that network with some of the timing of the communication. So just some notes now on terms of how to tie it together and the tone. We want their tone to be really human and uplifting and relatable. So you see on the right-hand side here, just a fun ad from California around EV rebates, really personalizing it and simplifying it into a key call to action. We also want to avoid jargon. I think we know we don't want to use the word decarbonize. It's kind of off-putting to lots of people, but other words like retrofit, audit can also seem too cold and not really motivating. Words instead are upgrade, home visit, easy, clean, and smart. And then we also want testimonials. We need a lot of them. We need to see that there are people like me or people like you making these changes. And that seems to be really consistent across some of the different campaigns. So we mentioned about visuals. So here's just some examples from Rewiring America showing the heat pump together with a fact around the heat pump, and it's a photograph of the heat pump. And then just some research below, you can see research incorporated in the study from Minnesota that showed that showing product images had the highest positive reaction from consumers in terms of likability of concepts. We talked about social proof. Lots of campaign examples talked about the fact that all your neighbors are doing it. So why don't you do it? So again, a really important mechanic to use in a campaign to try to drive adoption. We also saw a lot of campaigns using trusted local messengers. And actually, when we spoke to BDC yesterday with their switch off campaign, or the switches on campaign, they reconfirmed that the most important aspect and success of their campaign was their brand ambassadors approach, which is hiring people in the community to talk to their neighbors and friends and show them their heat pump system. And that really drove more adoption than any other program that they did. We also saw tools like visual norming cues, so yard signs, neighborhood events, point of sale demos can really help to drive adoption. And then having an integrated approach. So whatever communication we do should be really connected to the community engagement and outreach program. So here's just some results that we thought were really great results in terms of these are the campaigns that had the highest published results on adoption. So you see here Mass Save, and I talked about Massachusetts earlier. That's another region where electricity is lower, but they had 8,200 heat pumps installed, 57 million in customer rebates, 27.4 million in total campaign visits. And there, what we're really interested in is what's the key message that was helping to drive that campaign. And it was really around comfort and cost savings, affordability, efficiency. And that was a very expensive campaign. It had paid media, direct mail, email, a magazine partnership wraparound with Travel and Leisure magazine, and a lot of social media and Google search. So that's perhaps the most integrated. So you see a really big lift there. The next was Baltimore Gas and Electric, and we will show you the creative behind these different campaigns as well. They also saw a 312% increase in their smart energy savers programs. But again, they had more than 25 million broadcast television impressions, so a big investment in paid media. And then the third one, Welcome to the Saverhood, 219% conversion rate, and they had a lot of impressions, but again, TV was involved. So now this is the National Grid, the Great Indoors. So this is the Mass Save. So this one here, you can see they're focused on the life stage of retirement. They're really focused on helping people feel more comfortable. They're showing the heat pump. So a lot of the kind of key recommendations from the literature in this concept that was very successful in driving adoption. This one is the fairy tale one. I think we really loved this. I mean, obviously they had great results, but it was very creative. The whole idea is, you can save money and upgrade your palace and have your fairy tale. So you can, and the benefits were getting control of your energy use and getting it done, making it easy to cross off your to-do list. So a nice creative ad there. The last one was Welcome to the Saverhood. So this is founded on the concept of if savings were a place. It depicts an idyllic community where every road leads to smarter energy choices. So a lot of integrated messaging there around comfort and convenience. This one was not, we didn't have the campaign results. This is just launched. This is from the UK government, and it's called Feel All Warm and Fuzzy Inside. So it's an animated series, and we'll send the links out after this call so you can see the TV advertising. It's really fun. It's animated, but it's got real life stories of interviews with heat pump owners. So coming back to that trusted messenger, it's someone with an accent like me who's really enjoying a heat pump in their home. So there's no data yet, but just it got a lot of kudos for how creative and fun it was in making heat pumps relatable. This is an interesting campaign. This is, this is from a manufacturer or a retailer, IKEA. Life is full of energy thieves, and we really recommend watching these as well. They're really fun little ads that do down-to-earth storytelling, talking about the benefits of moving from a friction-like energy service to something that is more comfortable and easy in your home. So this also was launched in the last year, so there's no public data available on the success of it yet. So just in terms of the kind of final thoughts on what were the kind of key benefits, we really saw cost savings and affordability are those most universal benefits, followed by efficiency and comfort. So we'll be taking that into our research in terms of the concepts that we come up with. We'll also be looking at some other motivators listed there. But for campaigns specific to heat pumps, comfort is the most common motivator. We didn't see in heat pumps as much barriers addressed in the campaigns, with only one exception. And many of the campaigns went beyond the marketing message to look at community programs and all of those other kind of social proof elements that we talked about earlier. And then we looked at, okay, what are the kind of top names? Because I know we're thinking about how do we change from decarbonized Denver to something that's more consumer friendly. So we did an inventory of all the different campaign names that are out there. And what we found on the right-hand side there, you'll see the top names that came to the top. The biggest commonality is that they use action-orientated verbs or imperative language. So more than 50% of campaign names had something like that. So that would be the energize or make the switch or switch the switches on. That was really common. We were really interested in the idea of electric in the beginning because it seemed like that was getting a lot of a usage, and it is very common. More than 20% of names feature the word electrify and electric, but a lot of the research, as we said, found that that's quite off-putting to some audiences, and particularly low income. There also were a lot of messages around energy or efficiency as a frame that was around 20%, so that was pretty strong as well. And thereafter, comfort, lifestyle benefits, community, and then narrative or playful language at the end. So in terms of the top ranked benefits across all of the different campaigns, comfort and quality of life is number one, followed by savings and affordability, and then sustainability and clean energy is third. So that's the kind of the hierarchy in terms of where it should be. The other thing that we thought is worth mentioning is a lot of the campaigns focused around emotional benefits. So warmth, comfort, fairy tales. They're humanizing the message and tying it to everyday life to make it more relatable. There's also a lot of personal identity. So you saw a lot of connections to the place of the regional community where the initiative is based. So that makes people feel like they're part of something bigger. And we saw a lot of storytelling and a lot of humor and playfulness in this category, which I think is really important when you think about the fact that you're talking about heating and cooling. So you need to make it enjoyable and fun for everyone. So here, I'm sure you're well versed in what all of these different programs are, but here are some of the names that are out there that are working on energy in the Colorado region. And as you can see, the bottom line is there's no dominant unifying campaign name or program out there. So that kind of brings us to the end of the key learnings. And I'll just go over quickly what we think our next steps are. Is we want to understand more about the ground truth experience of early adopters, so especially homeowners and small businesses. It'd be good to see more case studies of the upfront costs, the operating costs, any complexity and operating issues, and the comfort and performance. And then we'll be, as I said before, we're using all of the research insights from our secondary research to inform our next phase, which is primary research, where we're doing focus groups and interviews with different communities across the region. And then our goal is to segment all of our audiences into sub-audiences so that we really know who we're talking to and we can develop messaging to those specific audiences. So thank you. Thanks for listening. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Feel free to raise your hand so we can see if anyone has any questions. What a great presentation. Very thorough. Looks like Jeff.
Thanks, Pip. That was really insightful and very comprehensive. That's pretty amazing. I have a couple of questions. One is for you, Pip, and then one's for Chris. The first question is, I'm very curious about the messaging surrounding cooling and heating, like the ability to provide cooling, particularly for income qualified households, and whether that has been impactful at all, because it's something I've been thinking about as well. Just the effectiveness of messaging for those that don't have cooling right now in their homes. And then the question for Chris is like kind of what are the next steps for utilizing this data and into some sort of communications plans for DRCOG. Thanks.
So yes, our hypothesis is that it is a big opportunity for cooling, especially given the summer heat wave that we're experiencing right now. And I think the Denver Kaiser office is already doing a campaign around helping low-income homes access cooling. So we think cooling is a definite benefit of heat pumps that we should message and talk about the fact that it's an integrated system and you can have both those benefits, particularly for homes that currently don't have cooling. It's a good benefit and a real driver. And I think you see that in that Energy Works campaign, the fact that they focused around summer, it's an important moment. And then your second question was about the communication and how we'll be evolving it into the messaging. Is that right?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Pip. And that is a really good question. And it's actually really pertinent right now because we're in the middle of in-depth meetings with Karshhagen where they are presenting ideas to us for the program name and the tagline. So actually right after this meeting, we're meeting with them in our second round of meetings to review what they've come up with creatively to name the program. And I think, Pip, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the work that you and
Oh, I think we lost you there, Chris. Is anyone else having a hard time
Yes.
hearing Chris?
Yes.
Okay, hey, Chris. Oh, let me see. One sec, we can't hear you, Chris. Can you hear us, Chris? Hmm.
Well, I can perhaps help Chris out, but so we're working for Karshhagen, who is developing the campaign name and the brand taglines, and there's a presentation happening after today's technical call to look at those, and then thereafter, all of the research will inform the communications.
thank you, Pip.
I
Sorry, I
think-
just completely, my computer just exploded. So sorry.
All good. Do you have anything more to share there, Chris, or are we ready to move
No,
on?
I'm sure I didn't really hear what Pip was saying, but I trust her implicitly. We're in very good hands with her, so I'm sure she didn't lead anyone astray with the answer. So
She did fabulous. All right, let's move on to Sean.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Sure can.
Great. Well, I'm calling at 8 o'clock in the evening from Estonia, one of the countries mentioned in your presentation, Pip. Thank you. Couple quick thoughts. The adding of cooling, absolutely a great advantage, but make sure not to lose track of the, it does add cost, right? So so cost was a leading discussion point. And so looking at cost comparisons and thinking about, well, okay, you're not necessarily going to save money against natural gas. Well, you're not necessarily going to save money on your annual utility bills because now you just added cooling in as well. So just, this is all sort of obvious stuff, but just calling it to clarity here. Also looking at cost versus what, right? So if you think about energy efficiency is often perceived as lower cost. And I know everybody on the call knows this, but just again, calling it out. Maybe looking at a creative way to think about cost versus what. And you know, in this context of how can you be 300% efficient, right? There's this interesting invitation, if you will, into, wait, that seems magical, right? So maybe playing with that fairy tale piece, et cetera, and so on around, oh, how can you be more than 100% efficient? Or cost versus, like, a lot of comparisons against an incandescent light bulb or miles per gallon and these kinds of things. And then a third thought is the utility companies are often considered one of the most trustworthy sort of entities in someone's life because you turn on the switch and power flows, right? It's just, it's 99 point whatever % there, and people trust utility companies in general. But yet, you know, there is this distrust. So in the context of being a contractor or representing contractor, you know, industry, the contractors are sort of this double-edged sword, if you will, that contractors are this trusted provider. And that's who they are looking, consumers are looking to the contractors to provide the solutions and the answers to their questions, et cetera, and so on. And yet they're somewhere down that tier of trusted entities on your list. So being thoughtful about how to play both sides of that in an informative, respectful, and encouraging way. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sean. Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Susie. Pip,
So great to see you, Jonathan from Boulder. Great presentation. Really appreciated it. Really comprehensive. I was kind of curious if we could get a copy of this just to go back and review some of those slides, but that's a later question.
Mhm.
So I have a comment and presuming you don't disagree with my comment, a question. So you had a couple slides there that I think were really helpful around social proof. There was one there. There was a piece that you did around kind of the EV messaging. And my comment is really around that, which is messaging matters. And you know this better than any of us on this call. And I would say this, that social norms are really powerful drivers of behavior. And what we have realized here in Boulder is that calling a home something like all electric shouldn't feel like branding it as an outlier. It should feel like describing a modern, forward-thinking standard. And so we need to get to this place where electrification is assumed, not qualified. And what I mean there is, how do we flip the narrative from this is this eco-conscious choice to this is the new normal? And I say that because I think my experience is that people are more likely to adopt technologies they perceive as common and probably proven. And rather than maybe niche or experimental, they feel less risky. And I think, again, going back to our experience here in Boulder, we've realized that our marketing has resulted in community members maybe feeling electrification is costly, it's complex, or it's for environmentally obsessed people or early adopters, and reframing them as mainstream, efficient, reliable. I think that really helps position our work as being logical, not luxury. And so, assuming you don't completely disagree with that, I'm wondering if you could speak to some successful campaigns that have really marketed electric options as the new default, not the exception.
I think there's one example, and absolutely, I'm fine for you to have the slides as long as DRCOG approves. And there is a campaign. It's called, EVs the new normal, and I think that is, part of that messaging is the fact that the rate of EV adoption is growing. And I think at the moment there was some really good data that came out. I think it was in Canary Media that heat pump adoption is superseding natural gas furnaces. So I think you're right. Not framing it as the future, but framing it as this transition is here and it is the new normal is the way to talk about it.
If I could jump in for a second on that. And hi, everybody. I'm Josie.
Hi, Josie.
For the Built Environment. Hey, Jonathan. Good to see you today and everyone else. One of the things that we're balancing here is maybe an idea, a little bit of go slow to go fast, in that because it's nuanced and because the cost is the greatest barrier and the cost conversation is nuanced and, as Sean was pointing out, doesn't always work out. We need to have, I think, a little bit of restraint in terms of identifying those early win-win situations. So there may be opportunities, for example, in small businesses. The cost comparison and cost numbers for a rotation on a standard rooftop unit, those numbers actually work out a lot better. And most municipalities want to support their small businesses. Without going too far into the details, we want to find those early win situations so that this doesn't gain a bad name and then become a conversation we can't talk about for 25 years in the way that happened with solar, decades ago. So we want to be really thoughtful about how we start to build the momentum in a way that will support the market transformation that we're really looking for. And we could hinder our overall efforts if we come out too confident or strong or with any sort of misleading information in terms of where to go with it. So we're trying to kind of find that sweet spot there for program strategy as well.
Thanks, Josie. Thanks, Jonathan. Great questions. Steve.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Awesome. Great presentation, like you said, like everybody said, a lot of information. One of the things you mentioned was on your targeting, your specific targeting data, and you talked about the solar and everything else. Did you do, or is there any targeting around low income and also maybe solar data that you have that's that's proven effective around, or that differentiates the low income household from the other households?
We still need to do more. I mean, we just did an initial hypothesis as just how many households in the region would we be talking to if we did a more focused, targeted approach. And so we'd really just looked at which are the homes that are energy burdened, and then which of those homes might already have electric resistance. So, for example, in a multifamily home, it's likely that you could have can have buildings that are on electrical resistance. And if the tenants in those homes are paying for that energy, then in all likelihood they're paying more for the utilities than they need to. And they would be the type of low income consumer that could really benefit from a more efficient heat pump system. Because and that's our hypothesis. And I think at the moment we've just used publicly available data sets to try to map how big we think that opportunity is, and then therefore how would we meet the program goals. But we need to do more on that targeting to see how that would work. But that's our hypothesis is if the business case is right for those communities, then you really could reduce the energy burden, which would align with the messaging that we know is going to work.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that combined with the cooling, like you said, I think it becomes a really compelling story for that low income side of it,
Yeah,
that we could be very effective in that space with a very targeted campaign that
absolutely.
addresses those specific types of, like you said, you get cooling now, you can get, you can, like you said, all those advantages. I think it would be very powerful to consider that type of campaign. And my other question is you mentioned the timing on a lot of these.
Mhm.
That timing to me in our history is critical too, around how you doing your campaigns, how we're bringing the programming into DRCOG. How is that going to go forward, and how are you guys looking at that timing associated with your campaigns around the programming?
We're still in the early phases of campaign planning. And I think, as Chris mentioned, we're working on the program name, the tagline, and initial campaign elements. I think the feedback from our team on the market research side is that it's crucial. The timing is everything in terms of the relevancy of the message. So, we've obviously missed this summer, but I think next summer would be an important time for us to have all of our program ready to go and a really targeted message on this campaign. The other thing I'd say about cooling is, we have a hypothesis that because it's such a benefit, and I think the memory of the summer will probably linger for some time, that that there might be an additional price point at which someone is willing to pay more for cooling because of the added comfort benefits that it has. So it doesn't have to be cost neutral. It's just what's the value and the benefit to the customer that we want to be focused on. And so I think there probably is some tolerance to accept a higher utility cost for cooling if it's going to be really beneficial to you and your family.
And we've done some preliminary research on that in our work with Boulder on the roadmap that they're developing. So we did a community-wide survey with 530 respondents, kind of testing their tolerance around how much more a month would they be willing to pay for the benefits that go along with, say, cooling, for example, but also with increased comfort and overall electrification. So we're starting to get some ideas for that. Now, that doesn't point obviously directly to those who are already cost burdened and maybe struggling to pay any utility bills. And so that's where we need to be looking across multiple programs and stacking benefits and looking for those situations where we can ensure that it's a win all the way around, increased comfort, and maybe an additional cost for those who can afford it, but not for those who can't, because we don't want to saddle people with additional monthly expenses.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful discussion. Any other questions for Pip or Chris before we move on? Sean?
Yeah, one thought that came to mind too is a few years back, there was a film series, a short film series that was done. I want to say it was in Craig, Colorado, and it had to do with the it's related but different track of discussion, but sort of this dignified energy transition. And so I think that because Colorado, call it purplish in terms of political positioning and such, and it is an energy generating state. There's a lot of folks out there that maybe less so on trying to get them to transition to this heat pump type thinking, and I'm a heat pump guy, so I think heat pumps, but rather reducing some of the friction, right? Thinking about this dignified transition might be worth weaving in a bit. And I think also the health and the safety, which you had priorities that you had uncovered as well, and I just wanted to underscore that as well, that there is an unappreciated level of health opportunity in a home when it comes to this electric transition that is often it's not talked about because it's not fully understood, but it goes to a deep level when you start talking about carbon monoxide and all these things, not with the intent to scare people, but understanding that it is a natural transition away from riskier conditions.
Thanks, Sean. Any other further questions or discussion? Okay, thank you, Pip and Chris. Great presentation. We're going to move on to administrative items. Is there any member or comments or other matters for the good of the group that need to be discussed?
Wait, I'm going to call on Clay to share some news.
Great. Clay?
All right, test. Can you guys hear me okay? Perfect. Well, just wanted to follow up on last technical committee. If you didn't make it, we presented on the possibility of DRCOG submitting a DORA sunrise review application, simply an application suggesting that DORA do a comprehensive review for the next 6 months on the HVAC industry and kind of the patchwork of regulation as it pertains to licensing. Again, just as a level set, you have to have a license for each city and town that you do service in. So for some of these contractors, they have 30 or 40 licenses that they have to renew on an annual basis, which through our interviews and stakeholder feedback, this is a huge administrative pain point and safety pain point. Smaller towns typically have less regulation, less permitting requirements than cities like Denver and Boulder, Colorado Springs. So anyways, presented to DRCOG's board, and after about 90 minutes of really invigorating discussion, it was approved that DRCOG would submit this application. And as of yesterday, we did submit our 50-page application with 4 spreadsheets, 5 letters of support, and just a ton of research. So that is submitted on behalf of DRCOG. And for the next 6 months, they'll be doing pretty comprehensive review as well as some stakeholder engagement. So just a follow-up on that, and we'll definitely keep you guys apprised as that process goes along.
Clay, that is so amazing. And according to an informant on the board, you did a fabulous job at that presentation. And I cannot thank you enough because I think that is absolutely essential in creating this entire network that we need to make this happen. So well done. Any other member comments or other matters? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll move on to just share a closing that our next meeting will be August 5th. And I don't know if it's in person, Robert, in person or TBD? Online?
Virtual.
Virtual. Okay. Well, enjoy July, everybody. And thank you so much for a fantastic meeting. Hope you all have a great day.
Thanks everybody.